Hi, so this is what you will see when you open the link, and to start crocheting you click on location, this icon right here, and then it will lead you to your first row, and on your right hand side you see your row number. Then you want to zoom in to see the row more clearly. Then you can also turn on written description by clicking this icon right here. And there will be a few options for you to choose from. Please don't mind these colors name. Your colors will be dark, main, and white. And then you can click this icon to change the description type. And then the icon above it is for text size. You can make it smaller or bigger. And this is how you move around in the chart. Click this icon if you want a whole written patterns. But honestly, it's a lot easier following the charge and looking at the charge while you're crocheting instead of reading it. I just want to show you that they are there if you need to use them, but that's all for setting up. Let's start crocheting. So when you look at your charge, it will start with row 1, but you still need to make the change row, which is row 0. What you want is just the number of row 1 plus 1 turning change, and then you can single crochet, skip 1 and single crochet into each chain. And this is what row 1 looks like. And for row 2 it's exactly the same, so no increase or decreases. It's still 16 here, so you just change 1, turn your work, then single crochet into the first stitch and in every stitch until you reach the other side. And this is after the second row. Make sure that your tension is medium to loose throughout the entire project. And the third row is the same, so that's the third row. And when you start seeing an increase, which is a block that is more than the previous row, then you want to do an increase. What you want to do is turn your work 2 single crochet into the first stitch, then 1 single crochet into each stitch after that. What you want to keep in mind is the increases and decreases will only be at the beginning and ends of the size of the projects, not the middle. The middle will only be about color changing. Okay, so let's do this row together where there's an increase and a color change. So change 1, 2 single crochet stitches into the first stitch, then 1 single crochet into each stitch for the next 9 stitches, because you need 10 until the color changing part. And for the color white, you actually don't need a lot, so you just need like a small ball. And to change to another color, you take the strand of the new color, finish your current stitch with it. And because this is the right side of your project, you do the single crochet into the back loop only. Technically you don't have to do this, but it will help a lot with the color changing to be a lot clearer and smoother in the whole overall picture of the pattern. And when the yarn is the same color, you go through the whole stitch. And for the next row, I'll show you how to do the color changing with the wrong side of the project. We'll move the yarn to the front and to the side like this, and you can pick up your white yarn, then finish that stitch, Now we go through the whole stitch because it is the same color. And here it is a different color, so we'll go to the front loop only. Then you put your yarn down, get your dark color yarn back in the front. Then we're gonna finish that stitch. Then we're gonna do single crochet into each stitch until the end of the row. And that's how we do color changing for the wrong side and the right side. You see how it's really clear between the stitches, the colors. And for this next row, it's just all one color, but I want to show you how to carry your yarn in the right side of your project. You want to go to the back loop only when it's a different color, like this. Then back loop only, but also with that yarn string. Then we're gonna do single crochet through the whole stitch because it's the same color until the end, and that's how it looks. And we'll be using all of the same tips and techniques we've been using until we reach kind of like to this point of the armpit of the cardigan or sweater. And here is how you carry your yarn in the wrong side of the project. The tip is carrying the yarn every 2 stitches. So you pick up the yarn for 1 stitch, then you don't for the next 2 stitches. Until it's a different color, then you just focus on color changing and then carry the yarn when you need to. Like right here, I only have 2 more, so we'll go in right here in the middle. It's not really an exact science, it's just however much you think is good. I like to keep the yarn no longer than an inch between each color. So, and now that the color changing is getting longer, make sure that it's not too tight or too loose. And another very important thing to keep in mind during this whole process is to not tangle your yarn skein. So if the yarn is on top, keep it on top. If it's on the bottom, keep it to the bottom, and not like switching the top and the bottom. So you see how right here I put the brown as the top, so I pick it up at the top instead of underneath the pink, if that makes sense. And it's very important the way you turn your work. See how you turn your work where all of the yarn stay the same to its skein instead of tangle and twist together. And when you finish the arm area leading to the body area where there's 2+ stitches increase, what you want to do is you crochet like normal for that whole row until the end is where we add on those stitches. So now that we're at the end of the row, we'll add those 4 increased stitches by doing single crochet foundation change. You put your hook into the same stitch as the last stitch, pull up a loop, then pull to that loop that would make it a change, then pull to the 2 loops, and that's 1 single crochet foundation change. Then repeat the same step for all of your increased stitches. So that's how you increase more than 2 stitches on the right side of your project. And next we'll do increases on the wrong side of your project. Right after this, we'll change the number of stitches that you need to increase plus 1 turning change. So you turn your project, then also you would need to turn your hook so that the V of the chains will be facing you. Then skip the first chain and single crochet into the second chain. That would be your first single crochet of the row. Then second single crochet of the row, and then for the rest you just single crochet into each stitch like normal. So whenever you see these 2 or more stitches increase, you just follow the same principle for either the right side or the wrong side of your project, and then most of them will just be a 1 stitch increase, and then in the middle you just have to worry about color changing until you reach the middle of the chart. The last row you do is the one with the main color, like this right here. And now we'll make an outline for the whole left front panel. So for the outline, we'll switch to the 4mm hook, and we'll go into the gaps in between the rows. You can see right here, that's one gap, and we'll go into the stitch at the top of that gap. And then there will be the gap with the bumps, like right this one is the gap with the bump, and then we'll go to the stitch right on top of that gap, and then this gap is the gap without the bump, and then we'll go into the stitch at the top of that gap as well. So we'll just make 1 single crochet into each gap. One gap is with the bump and then 1 gap is without the bump, and that's the pattern we'll go into. And right now we're doing the outline for the bottom of the wings when it's reaching to the side of the wing, which is the body part, and then the arm. There'll be some slight differences. And now you can see the stitches that we did from the increases. And what you want to do is continuing following the patterns that we've been doing with the gaps without the bumps and the gap with the bumps. It's a bit harder to see in this part where the edge is a bit steeper, but we're still doing that. And then there's these part where we can see clear stitches. We'll go into those stitches as well, like here. That's 1 stitch. You can see the stitches that of the increases that we did earlier. We'll go into these as well, and that's in 1 gap, but they have stitches, so we're also gonna put 1 single crochet into those stitches. And then on this gap with the bums, we have more stitches, so we'll go into the gap first and then we'll go into the stitches on top of that. And then now we'll go into the gap again, and then we have these stitches that we'll go single crochet into each of them. And then you can turn your piece so it's easier to work on the underarm of the wing and still continue following that pattern of the gaps with the bums and with the gap without the bums. For the rest of the outline, it would just be very simple because the difference between the gaps are just one stitch, and you do the whole outline up into the hand part of the sweater or cardigan. For that part, it would just be one single crochet into each stitch, because you can see the stitches clearly. You can also hold the yarn in between the single crochet so that you don't have to weave it in later. You should have this smooth turn between the corners because there's no increases. And now back to the shoulder and the arm part. You do single crochet into each gap like how you did earlier. And for this part of the outline, you follow that tip with the color changing of the right side. It'll be back loop only for those different color stitches, and then you continue until you reach the end. Right at the curve part, that's when you make one slip stitch to finish up your outline, and then you can cut your yarn, pull it through, and that's your front left panel finished. Then you can bring that tail in to the wrong side of the project and weave it in later. So this is what you should have so far. And for the next panel, the front right panel, we're going to skip all of the middle part and go straight to the row with the main color. We're gonna add all of the blocks color together with one turning change. With that, you're gonna make your change, and when you reach that changing color, you're gonna add your color and also carry it so that it'll be more secure. And then you just continue crocheting the chart up to about the armpit of that side, around there where we'll do 2 or more stitches decreases. I'll see you there. So for the right side of your project, when you have decreases, you just leave those stitches empty, then make one change and turn your work and continue on the next row. And here on the wrong side of your project, we have one decrease, then we just skip the first stitch and then single crochet into the second stitch and continue your row as usual. And when we have 3 or 4 or more decreases on the wrong side of the project, you want to pull your hook up a little bit to pull out more yarn, then skip those stitches and then crochet your row as usual. You want to keep track of your stitches so that you know how many you're leaving, and that's the right number of stitches that you're not going into, so that it doesn't affect the next row. And for the wrong side of your project, when there's a big decrease like this, 4 or more stitches, you just want to pull up your hook a lot higher to get enough yarn so that it will cover those stitches at the top. And then you just crochet your rows as usual. For the rest of this, it will be just 1 stitch decrease or increase. And when you reach the last row, you make an outline like how you did for the other panel. The trickiest part would be these stitches down here at the body part, but I'll go through that with you. So instead of doing the single crochet into each gap so far, we're gonna go to each stitch of the body part right here, and then ignore that yarn part at the top, and then we're still gonna go into each stitch of this part. We have 3 stitches here, so we'll do 3 single crochet and it should be smooth like this. Then for this gap, we're still gonna do 1 single crochet at the top of that gap, so 1 single crochet here. And then for the next row, we see that we have some stitches here. We're just gonna do 1 single crochet into each of them. You don't really have to be perfect and exact in this area, because if there's gonna be a difference on the panels, the difference is about 1 to 2 stitches difference, and when you sew them together, the way you align them, you won't even see it. So don't be worried too much if it's not super like exact number. And for each panel, you can add 1 more row of single crochet at the shoulder part of the panels to add more length to your body part if that's what you like. Then for the back panels, you just need to crochet the chart all the way through without skipping any rows, and then we're ready to sew the panels together. Measure a string of yarn about 2 to 3 times of the shoulder part of your panels and put it through a yarn needle. Then we're gonna go at the arm, the hand part first. Always we're gonna go into that first 2 stitches about like 2 to 3 times to make it very secure. Then continue to put your needle through both panels for every stitch until you reach about like the last 10 to 15 stitches, however much you want your neck length to be. There are many ways that you can connect the panels together, so if you have a favorite way, you can also go with that. This way it helps the piece to lie flat on your body, and it's also very secure for the top part of the cardigan. You can also use your favorite sweater or cardigan and measure the neck part of how much you would like. Then for the last stitch, you want to go through that 2 to 3 times as well to make it very secure. Then you can put your needle through to the wrong side of your panel so that you can weave in the tail end. Next, we'll sew the underarm part and the body part. As always, we'll start at the hand part of the cardigan slash sweater. We'll go through that first stitch 2 to 3 times as well to make it very secure. And you can always weave in that tail end later. For this, we'll align it and then go through both panels at every stitch as well. And this is where it's up to you if you like your sweater to be a little bit more open or close in at the hip part. So the longer you go down into this body part, the more it's gonna be close in and more snugly. But if you want it to be more open, then you don't have to go that far down. Then you put your needle into the back panels again and weave in the ends. And then you do the same thing for the other side. And now we're ready to make the front ripping. The reason why we're starting at the bottom like this is because I'm right-handed, and if you're right-handed too, your stitch will go from right to left. So first we'll pull up a loop with the yarn, then we'll make one change, then the first stitch will be a single crochet, then the next stitch will be a half double crochet, so it will increase and create a curve effect. Then after that, we'll make one double crochet into each stitch until you reach the neck part. These are what I call corner stitches because they're making a corners. For those, you will make 2 double crochets into each of those stitches, so it'll create a corner as well, just a bigger one. And then for the rest of that, you're gonna make 1 double crochet into each stitch. And now that we're at the back of the neck, I'm just gonna turn it this way so it's easier to work with and for you to see. We're gonna jump over to the first stitch of the back of the neck, and then we're gonna make a slip stitch to connect that part together. Then you're gonna make one slip stitch into each stitch so that we're making a little bit of a security line for the back of the neck. And now that we're on the other side of the neck, we'll make one slip stitch to connect that smoothly. Then we'll make 2 chains and 1 double crochet into that first stitch, then 1 double crochet into each stitch until the corner stitches. For those, we'll do 2 double crochet into each, like how we did for the other side, and then the rest is the same. And when you reach the end near the curve, you want to do 1 half double crochet into one stitch, then 1 single crochet into the next stitch, then make a slip stitch to secure the whole thing, then cut your yarn, pull through, and weave in the end later. And that's the ripping. Now we'll work on the security line to make this part really secure for the buttons later. You want to pull up a loop, but make sure that the end is long enough to weave in later. And you do one slip stitch into each stitch all the way up to the corner of your neck part. And at the top of the neck we can add an antenna, which can also be tied into a ribbon, but that's optional. What you want to do is just change however long you want the antenna to be. Then you're gonna skip 3 chains and make a slip stitch into the 4th chain, and that would create like a little bit of a bubble at the tip part. And then you just do 1 slip stitch into each chain until you reach the corner stitches again. Then make 1 slip stitch at the base where it started, then cut and pull your yarn through to the back and weave in the end later. And then for the other side, you want to start with antenna, measure it the same amount with the other side, then skip 3 chains, then make 1 slip stitch into the 4th chain like earlier, and 1 slip stitch into each chain until the end, and then we'll attach the whole thing onto the other side and start the second security line. And on this side we'll start with the corner stitch of the neck, because we'll have to let the stitch go from right to left again. Make 1 slip stitch into that corner stitch, and then 1 slip stitch until you reach the end of the ripping. And at the end you pull these end tail to the back, tie them together, and weave them in together. And now we're ready to attach the buttons on top of. I did the left ripping. You can use however many buttons that you like. I did 5. So you use 1 string of yarn about 15 inches with your needle, and put that string of yarn through the holes of the buttons. And to make it even, you want to count from the top of the neck to the end of that ripping. Then with whatever number you got, you want to divide that by the number of buttons that you want to use. Then again, counting from the neck, and put your hook through, pull through 1 strand of the buttons and then the other strand on the other side of the double crochet columns. And in the back you want to tie the 2 tails together about 4 or 5 times to make it really secure, and then put both strands on the needle and weave these tails in. And then you just repeat the same step for the rest of your buttons, and you're done. Thank you so much for crocheting this piece with me. I know it's a big piece, and I hope you had a lot of fun making it and more fun wearing it. I would love to see your beautiful creation, so please tag me or send me a picture. I'll see you on our next crochet adventure.